Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. Get some weed in now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Ultimate Penny Bloom Film Awards. 'Tis I, Colton Robertson, and I'm joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
What up? It's such a pleasure and honor to be here today.
Oh, we've done many an award show. Many an award show over the course of our 52-year journey through film. It's been a great joy. We had an award show for the 70s, an award show for the 80s, an award show for the 90s, an award show for the 2000s, an award show for the 2010s. We skipped out on the 20s because we just rolled the winners into this. The Ultimate Penny Bloom Film Awards. We are taking the winners of every category in every decade and setting them up against each other. Let's go through those categories for you real quick. We have set design, costume design, best soundtrack, best supporting actress, best supporting actor, best lead actress, best lead actor, best director, best writer, and ultimately movie of the last 5 decades. We're going to pick the best movie of all time, according to us, according to our project.
Yeah, any movie before MASH doesn't exist.
Anything before the 70s, not according to this project. It's not real. It's mythic. It's fake. It's not real. It's not there. Going full Matthew McConaughey and Wolf of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a quick award to Matthew. Just
generally a good award to Matthew McConaughey. He feels fitting. But let's kick this shit off. You fucking ready?
Oh man, I've been ready for a while for this one. It's bittersweet though.
Yeah, it's time to this is officially concluding the 52-year journey through film. I had a tough time after the Everything Everywhere All at Once pod. I was kind of like, man, I really liked this one. I don't know how much I really want to dip away from this format. Because we're watching some damn good movies. And I set up the list for the comic book movie project. I was like, there's going to be stretches there. We're watching some shit movies.
And honestly, it sounds bad initially. But it will be nice just to be like, you know what? I know this movie's shitty going into it. I already know. I just want to watch it as if I have no bias whatsoever. And we can trash a movie. We haven't been able to really trash a movie. And we've only been able to say great things. It'll be and there are some gold movies in there. There are some ones that are actually
oh yeah, that's what's so exciting about that project to come. There are some gold standard movies. There are some absolute shitters, and I cannot wait to get to them. Just because, like we said, this whole project was set around us going, what might be the best movie from any given decade? Obviously, there were some reprieves in there. We had 1987. We went with Spaceballs. I know some are like, 2002, you had Scooby-Doo, and to you, I'd say, fuck you, that's the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
You're a goddamn idiot. We've had some fun ones in there. We've slipped them in there. 2011, we did Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I wouldn't necessarily say that's you go to 2011, you're like, that's the greatest movie of the year, I don't know. We just picked whatever the fuck we wanted to pick, So let's get into it. All the winners of every decade faced off against each other in the Ultimate Penny Bloom Film Awards.
And if you ever spread it word of mouth, you have to say it like that.
Yes, that's exactly how you have to strike the deep tone, kind of like a Star Wars, or not a Star Wars, kind of Star Wars Clone Wars narrator voice, but I was thinking more SpongeBob narrator voice.
Squilliam.
Yes,
Squilliam. A little Squilliam mixed with SpongeBob narrator.
Yeah, for sure. The tight beat.
But I guess a quick disclaimer before we give any award: Scooby-Doo would obviously win every category, so it is held aside on a different standard from these awards. So
that was the concern. That was the natural concern with all these categories. How does Scooby-Doo not sweep? So we had to go ahead and exclude it. So I want to make it clear that's not because it wouldn't have earned any nominations. That's just because we felt it was unfair to include it in the 2000s awards. Like, if you go back to the 2000s awards, we barely include it because it's just like, well, duh, that's the greatest movie. But let's begin. Let's begin the ultimate Penny Bloom Film Awards. We'll kick it off with the less personal, the less actor, actress, writer, director based. Let's go set design. For the 70s, the winner was Star Wars: A New Hope. We did a live commentary of that film, and it was a great joy. It was a happy Thanksgiving. That might confuse everyone listening, as it was released in, February. We also have, for the 80s, The Shining. For the 90s, The Truman Show. For the aughts, Gladiator. For the 10s, La La Land. And for the 20s, Tick, Tick, Boom. Now, obviously, these all have some pretty incredible set design. That is the point of this award show. They were the winners of their decade. Kind of spoiling every other award show if you have any interest in it, because we're going to go ahead and give you the winners. But yeah, Star Wars, The Shining, The Truman Show, Gladiator, La La Land, and Tick, Tick, Boom. How you feeling?
The ones that jump out at me right away... Star Wars is,
a very natural one.
Come on. Those paintings that were the backgrounds go for millions upon millions.
And even the sets that they did build on a nothing budget at the time to just have that sort of creativity. And I say nothing budget. George Lucas ended up saying, "Fuck your budget. I'm going to go ahead and do whatever I want, straight out of my pocket." But. Yeah, it's got some incredible sets. This is going to be a nice little test of our bias across this award show with all the Star Wars awards.
The Shining it's pretty much just the hotel. And not to say it was bad; it won the decade.
It was the way the set was a character.
It was more. That's not that it was anything fantastic or unbelievable. It was just
I don't think Kubrick and the team there built the hotel.
No, probably not. The Truman Show was kind of meta with the set, it being a huge set that he's living in, basically. But at the same time, they did have to actually make some of those places. The fake wall behind the elevator is just a cool little peek into the... a meta look into the camera crew of the people who are filming the movie, but it's also filming Truman. Cool. And I don't know, making it just a globe, like a dome, just a massive dome in the middle of... Was it in the USA? I guess I don't.
Yes, it was in Burbank, California. Because his name is Truman Burbank.
There you go. But yeah, set was super cool there. I don't know if it beats Star Wars out. I'm kind of going down the list to see if it does beat Star Wars out, and I don't think one has beat it out yet.
And I'm not going to lie to you, my friend. I don't know that any of them will. The next one being Gladiator and all. A lot of CG, a lot of visual effects sets there, but, the Gladiator pits and stuff. Smaller scale, not the Coliseum. Obviously, they did not back out the Coliseum for that.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but they did not actually fill up the Coliseum for that. Gladiator is fake news.
Oh, that movie sucks now. I can't believe that.
It is far and away our least popular episode of the year.
Really?
Yeah, that's just statistically. Far less people give a shit about Gladiator than any other movie.
There you go. Well, at least you got a nom here. A couple of
them,
and
it has a few over the course here. And it's worthy. I thought it was a damn good movie. It just wasn't the listenership wasn't appealed. They were like, yeah, fuck it. I don't give a shit about Gladiator. I can skip this week. I think it also released the same weekend as like a new big TV show or something, if I remember correctly. So I remember like doing the advertising for it, being like, I know none of you are going to give a shit about this, but go ahead and check out the Gladiator podcast we just did. That was the danger of doing this every Friday. But, yeah, Gladiator, pretty solid. La La Land was the only one that I thought really gave Star Wars a run for its money.
This one was very cool. The observatory, I remember that. The actual legitimate sets that they were going through whenever they were having, like, the kind of... I don't know, it was all in their minds, and there was, like, literal sets being, like, pushed, and, like, it would change from set to set. That scene was awesome.
Like the cars driving by and shit, and like cardboard cars and the giant road and shit. Like the entirely white setting with like lampposts and stuff. Like it's a very gorgeous set piece there. But even like not just the observatory itself, but when it falls away and they're in a giant starry room that's not obviously not actually there. Not actually the observatory, but. Yeah, La La Land, it gives it a damn good run for its money. I'll say that for sure. Tick, Tick, Boom, also solid, but even comparing it to La La Land feels like, I think La La Land takes the edge there. So, like, sounds to me like our top two are probably Star Wars and La La Land.
I'd agree.
All right, so we got the 10s versus the 70s.
Goddamn.
Yeah.
Okay, let's think of... Star Wars bias out of my head. The sets of the movie, matte paintings. I guess would you count the ships and stuff? I mean, yeah, in the Falcon.
Yeah, like that's the place they built. Yeah.
Fuck. I don't think
like
it's,
the Death Star, the fucking pill lighting and stuff. It's Star Wars. Like there is no bias necessary there for you to recognize that Star Wars has the greatest set design, like, or at least the most impactful and distinctive set design of any film franchise ever. You know, you see an aesthetic from Star Wars, and you know that's Star Wars.
Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, like I don't know, kind of leading into the next category too. Like you see a silhouette of someone, and you know instantly who it is, or like the Death Star silhouette is known. You know, it's just a circle with a little itty or a sphere with a little dent in it, basically. But everyone knows, oh yeah, that's the big Death Star from Star Wars. Like
that's a problem. That's a problem right there. But yeah, so set design, ultimate winner across all decades, Star Wars for set design, and I felt that was probably going to be the case. And I promise that's not bias based. In fact, I think over the next couple, you might find that our bias becomes even harder to overcome, or even easier to overcome. Harder to lean into, easier to overcome. Costume design up next. We got Star Wars for the 70s, The Breakfast Club for the 80s, The Matrix for the 90s, Gladiator for the 2000s, Django Unchained for the 2010s, and Everything, Everywhere, All at Once for the 2020s. Yeah, so in fact, what's interesting about this one, since we're kicking it off with Star Wars, it is not where my gut even goes.
Wow. My gut kind of went Matrix first. But that's kind of, I don't know. My gut was like, if not Star Wars, then what? Here. And then it would be the Matrix next to me. I look at Neo and everything, but like,
as far as the craft of it, as far as like the actual like knowing they created these pieces of clothing for this movie, Gladiator is absolutely nuts with the costume design.
Commodus was dripping.
Drip. That's all I was thinking. Like, that's the thing, is that for me, it was like Star Wars Vader versus Gladiator Commodus. As far as what the war, like the true, what got them the nom, you know? Like, that's,
okay.
Because I think Star Wars has a pretty great selection otherwise, but I think that would be a lot of my bias coming into play. Like, I don't think you can objectively look at Luke's, like, Sandboy outfit and go, that's as cool as anything from Gladiator. You know what I'm saying? Like,
R2, C-3PO,
Chewbacca. Now there's where Chewbacca and 3PO is really where you start going, oh, wait a minute, because they built those suits, you know? Like, these aren't CGI augmented characters.
Troopers,
they're there.
All the trooper suits. The Emperor.
Yeah. Fuck.
But in Gladiator, you also had Maximus's outfits were great too. Like his early, like whenever he was fully kitted, you know, in the beginning of the movie when he was leading battles and stuff, those were sick.
And that's kind of the the authenticity of the era versus the fantastical nature of what Star Wars ends up doing.
I guess Gladiator's costume design is more universally good as compared to Star Wars. Even I think like
that was kind of where I was coming from. Like you look at that shit and you can tell like there was money behind the costume department. You know what I'm saying? Like they were. But that was the thing though, is that like I think Gladiator is solid. I think Star Wars is solid. I think those are two great options. The Matrix was naturally a very, very easy one to also gravitate to.
It's gonna be tough to be glad. Like, now that I'm looking at pictures of the suits and stuff.
They went nuts for that, man.
This Commodus suit, the, like, purple and white, or the one at the very end, the one he dies in, was beautiful. Like, every outfit. I mean, that's just the era that they're in. Everyone wore outfits, you know, people of royalty. Like, it was known that they were royalty based off what they were wearing. So, I mean, but God, like, man, every character, dude, like.
Came with the fucking drip.
Okay.
In Gladiator. Like, that's what's ultimately it. Like, what's occurring to me when I think about this is that Star Wars, I felt like, besides, like, 3PO, Vader, and Chewbacca are the premier examples of fantastic costume design in Star Wars. Stormtroopers also, like, that's like, very unique, very original. But those other ones, those are like that's a marvel of cinema. Like, people really thought C-3PO was a robot that they had on set. Chewbacca was like that's a dude in a giant furry costume. But it was still like, that dude's like 7'8". Like, what the fuck? And then, you know, Everything Everywhere All at Once is another one that we have here.
Joy.
Yeah, Jobu Tupaki, man. That's
I guess just more correctly, Joe. Yeah, I shouldn't call her Joy. I mean, it kind of is. It's Alpha Joy, you know.
It's Alpha Joy. Yeah.
So
it's Raccoon Joy,
but Raccoony Joy. That's right. That's how. Whenever she's trying to explain to them what's going on, is that Raccoony Joy, or is that are you Raccoony? Or I forgot about that.
Fucking fantastic! I love that movie. But yeah, you know, like I think those four are really like the premier options, and Everything Everywhere All at Once has a disadvantage because it really is only one character whose costume design goes nuts. I will say, like, the amount of costume changes she does and everything, the different designs she wears over the course of the movie, she might be the single best example of costume design in a single character, but across the movie, I don't think I can award it to them. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair. And, I mean, to its credit, like, The Matrix, I kind of forgot, like, they started a trend for, like, sunglasses. Neo's sunglasses, in all the sunglasses that people wore, like, that was what was cool because of this movie. Like, the early 2000s, people wore the Neo shades. Or the maybe people weren't sporting the Morpheus, right. Whatever, but, like, you know, it's simple, but unique at the same time. Like, it's trench coats, you know, it's like their ultimate version of themselves is what they're imagining, you know, so it's kind of cool. It doesn't win here, but like it is just
no.
it is just really cool.
What I think it is coming down to is the uniqueness of Star Wars versus the craft of Gladiator. You know, like I felt like the I've already reiterated those points a couple times, you know. So like it is ultimately up to us just going ahead and making a fucking decision because I can't decide.
As far as the entire movie goes, and I think that's what the award is more for, not it like is. Just that, I mean, Darth Vader is one of the best costume designs of all time, but Gladiator, every character is spot on and beautiful and crafted. I think it's critically correct to give it to Gladiator.
Okay, I think so too. I'm with you. I'm glad that's where we ended up because that was where my gut took me. Was just because I remember thinking about it so, like that was far and away the premier best part of that movie.
That's true. If I'm taking anything out of that movie, like remembering 10 years in the future, I'm like, what do I like about the movie Gladiator? I'll be like,
those costumes were sick.
Yeah, I'm not going to be like, the fight scenes were incredible. Yeah, I love the sword play. No, I don't know.
I love the sword play.
Yeah, okay.
One guy who's in Westworld season 3 is very young in it.
I mean, there you go. I mean, there's already a loss for Star Wars, you know.
There it is. I needed at least one. I can feel much more comfortable about awarding everything Star Wars from here on out. No, I'm just kidding. But yep, set design goes to Star Wars in the 70s. Costume design goes to Gladiator in the aughts. So let's push forth with best soundtrack. We've got John Williams for Star Wars in the 70s. John Williams for Raiders of the Lost Ark in the 80s. John Williams for Jurassic Park in the 90s. I believe it was James Horner who did the Avatar soundtrack in the aughts. Hans Zimmer, who did the Interstellar score in the 10s, and Jonathan Larson's Tick, Tick, Boom for the 20s. And I'm crediting Jonathan Larson. I know they weren't recorded and everything by Jonathan Larson, but he did write all of the songs.
It's basically Jonathan Larson featuring everyone else who worked on the movie,
exactly,
in a way.
Exactly.
But wow, I mean, we have some of the greatest soundtracks of all time in here. These top, 3, Star Wars, Raiders, Jurassic, are probably the most recognizable soundtracks in movie history. Like, you hear one note for some and you instantly know where you are, and it puts you right in the universe. Out of these, which one do I listen to the most? As of right now, it's Interstellar. That's because I started my own movie and TV soundtrack playlist. It's not anywhere near the length of yours yet. I only have 4 soundtracks in there right now. So it's just, I'm listening to Interstellar more. Do I think it beats Star Wars, Raiders, or Jurassic Park? No.
That's the thing for me, is that it is between one of those 3. Let's be real about
John's
it.
John's going to win here.
John
will win here.
John.
The meaning behind Jonathan Larson's soundtrack, is insane. It's just, as far as what a soundtrack's supposed to do for a movie, John Williams is winning this category.
Yeah. So here's my thing. We got Star Wars, Raiders, and Jurassic. If I'm being 100% honest of the theme I go to, not necessarily what's best, but when I think of a John Williams theme, it's Indy's theme.
Bum, 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 bum. Now, I think, what's the most iconic out of all of these?
I think Star Wars because of the fanfare title.
Okay, I guess the theme, if you were just to take the theme by itself, I think Raiders or Jurassic Park actually wins here, but the entire collection of the soundtrack. You have Vader's theme, Luke's theme, Leia's theme, Yoda's theme.
Let me tell you, Leia's theme is that song, bro.
I mean, ooh. And the Imperial March.
Yeah.
I guess I'm
Imperial
trying to
March
limit it
isn't
to New
technically
Hope.
till
Yeah,
Empire.
So,
they do play it, just a different version of it.
The Cantina Band.
Yeah. I tried to avoid it.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible here though.
It's Star Wars. It's
well, okay. If we're thinking of what a soundtrack is supposed to do for a movie, sure, all these songs could be good on their own, but in the moment, it has to make you feel the emotion that they want you to feel. And like Raiders, it does a perfect job of making you feel like an adventurer and like you're watching this hero become a hero, even though he's not a hero. It's like it's beautiful and it's epic. Jurassic Park, like whenever you see the dinosaurs for the first time, if that music's not there, like even though I said that, I think Star Wars might still execute on the soundtrack.
The example
the
I
best
wanted to
as well.
go with. The example I wanted to go with. Tell me in your head, and we are Star Wars fans, so this might be a little unfair, but in your head, think about Luke looking out at the twin suns. The music swell there.
Fuck.
That's enough. There's not a line spoken in that entire sequence right there, and it's one of the most iconic shots in the. It is like, in comparison to Jurassic Park, the first time they see the dinos. Like that is kind of what it is in that moment.
That's right after he comes home, his parents are dead, and he's looking out. Is that, or his aunt,
no,
uncle?
I think they're still alive. They're still alive, but it's just
what is happening?
It's the night before he has to go out searching for R2 the next morning.
Okay. Yeah, that's I don't know, man. I'm trying to find a way that Star Wars doesn't win here, and every time I bring up like, oh, it might not win here, it actually does like still do the best out of all of them.
I mean, the theme at Yavin at the end, whenever they're celebrating their victory.
Poor Chewie not getting a freaking medal.
The fucking trench run, like
the trench run. There was a YouTube video that showed the trench run with music and without. It's so it's actually kind of boring without the music. Like even it's one of the most iconic scenes in all of Star Wars, but like without the music, it's like kind of tough to watch. Like
I think John Williams is potentially the most critically important piece of Star Wars history, aside from George Lucas, of course. But him being there through all those movies, it just brings them to a different level, and I don't think it could have started better than with Star Wars: A New Hope. So 2 out of the 3 awards out of the way. That's really what I was like, okay, if we can get 2 out of 3 even, I'll be good. So Star Wars won set design and best soundtrack, while costume design went to Gladiator. And it's time we get to the more personal stuff. Let's hit the supporting actress category. You looking ready?
Woo. We got some goodies in here.
We do indeed. So let's start. We did not have a supporting actress in the 70s because it was a sausage fest in the 70s.
Indeed.
Lots of great leading ladies though in the 70s. It was hard to pick a winner then. But best supporting actress for the 80s. Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark. In the 90s, Gwyneth Paltrow in Seven. In the 2000s, Ruby Dee as Mama Lucas in American Gangster. In the 2010s, Sodam Park as Ki-jung in Parasite. And in the 2020s, Stephanie Hsu as Joy Wong in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And you'll be shocked to hear from me that this isn't hard. Not for me. For me, this is an almost easy win for Stephanie Hsu as Joy Wong.
Okay. I was between these two. The first three, I was only between Parasite and Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then I'm like, well, Sodam Park, she had like a few good scenes, but Joy was just like...
She makes you feel that shit, man. Because here's the thing, is that of these roles as well, she's the closest to a leading lady in the role.
True.
You know, like Michelle Yeoh is the main character in Everything Everywhere All at Once, but she almost splits time with Joy. You know, like it was kind of could almost be either or. They could have had two leading lady noms, frankly, but like Sodam Park as Ki-jung in Parasite is fucking stellar. I love Ruby Dee as Mama Lucas, but she only has like one or two scenes that she's there for. Gwyneth Paltrow only has one scene that she's there for. Marion Ravenwood was kind of an automatic win for the 80s, just because it was like, who else are we going to give it to?
Yeah, this one...
It really did come down to Sodam Park and Stephanie Hsu.
Yeah, and Stephanie Hsu just did better.
I mean, I think to the... Because when you really put everything on a bagel... That's what's crazy about that monologue. Like, I can't get over this movie.
It's so
because
serious.
It's absurd.
But
it's absurd. But like, I'm feeling every ounce of what she's feeling in that moment. Whenever she's like, every report card, every Craigslist ad, every whatever, and like, then it cuts back to her, and she's got a tear rolling down her face, and she's like, hooked on a bagel, and then it just. I can't get over it, man. Stephanie Hsu is potentially one of my favorite performances of all time.
Is it that
as Joy and Jobu Tupaki,
or that you're not allowing me? Like that, her introduction was insane. Like she can be evil.
Oh no, you don't know, dude. Like she's fucking nuts with it. It's legitimately. Like I said, one of my favorite performances of all time. That's why when we got here, it wasn't hard. Like it is Stephanie Hsu as Joy. Like, and then that to get away from the more outlandish stuff, the last interaction with Michelle Yeoh, whenever everything's going nuts around her, and she just goes, "Will you just stop?" And then they have the real deal conversation about like whenever she's like, "Good for you, Mom. You getting your shit figured out. Good for you." Like, I'm crying my ass off.
Are you just gonna ignore everything else? Like her, like it. Oh God, yeah, no. This one's pretty easy. If she was almost a nom for a leading role, which is probably more apt for that. It's just Michelle Yeoh's Michelle Yeoh. So like, it's like it wouldn't.
We weren't gonna give her the supporting nod. You know.
But man. I mean, yeah, a absolutely massive part of the movie. If like you take her out, like she's the main antagonist, in air quotes, I'd say.
Yeah.
But man, this one's pretty simple here, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction. An antagonist, not a villain. You know, like
yeah, she's not evil.
Nah, yeah.
She's just
lonely. Looking for someone to help. But so now we've got two winners in the 70s, one in the aughts, and one in the 20s.
We're getting diverse already. Okay.
80s and 90s feeling a little neglected at the moment, but hey, I'm sure we'll get there.
Hey, we spent a whole week on 1 year of the 90s, so like they got their fix.
They got their time. But yeah, Best Supporting Actress, Stephanie Hsu as Joy Wong. So let's head on to Best Supporting Actor. We've got, for the 70s, Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper in Jaws. In the 90s, Robert Sean Leonard as Neil in Dead Poets Society. That was the 80s. In the 90s, Morgan Freeman as Red in The Shawshank Redemption, and as Somerset in Seven, depending on what you're looking for.
Do we have to choose one here? If we are choosing one, it's Red.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it doesn't matter. He's going to win. In the aughts, Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus. In the 10s, Jonah Hill as Donnie Azoff. And in the 20s, Ki Kwan as Wayman Wang in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Another nom there for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But
should we just give some honorable mentions here?
Yeah, because it's Morgan Freeman. Again, kind of a similar situation as Stephanie Hsu as Joy. He easily could have gotten the Best Leading Actor nom for any of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a matter of who they centered as the main character in those movies.
So
I do want to give... Yeah, no, Best Actress is the most nightmare of a category there is.
I won't... I looked ahead a little bit, and I don't even want to think about it. I'll start with, I think my first honorable mention out of the list, the one that's the closest, I feel, is... Wayman, like Wayman's character, it's on it, like on the emotional level that he connects with you, like where he's confused and he feels like it's all his fault. That scene alone was amazing, and then I guess he's not doing all the stunts and stuff like that, but like just he had to do so much. He had to be the super happy and everything's okay husband, and like
I mean the way he changes his cadence, the way he speaks changes when he is Alpha Wayman and when he's normal Wayman. Like he's got a higher pitched voice when he's not Alpha Wayman, and like that part where he's like you really like he like acts like he's about to get sad and then he switches right into Alpha Wayman. You know, like he had to do a lot of shit for this movie.
You know, it kind of just hit me. Like obviously I know it's the same actor doing it all. But, like, I really think of them as different characters.
No,
like,
yeah, that's what's incredible about that movie, dude. Like, when you think about every performance in that movie, there's not a single one that's lacking. Like, all of them fucking nail it. James Hong as Gong Gong. Jamie Lee Curtis as Deirdre. She's, like, one of the funniest performances across our entire fucking 52-year journey through film, you know? And Ki Kwan, I want to save this for a little bit later for one of the categories we got in the latter half of the show, but maybe favorite monologue. I don't know what's happening, but somehow I feel like it has to be my fault. You know, like that shit's heartbreaking. And the way his voice breaks, and whenever him and Michelle Yeoh are like, I'm talking through this, and it's nuts that it's still easily Morgan Freeman, because like just thinking about it makes me go like, God damn, that's a fucking performance Ki Kwan put on. Like it's nuts.
Do you want to get? I think the next honorable mention goes to Robert Sean Leonard as Neil in Dead Poets. That was, you know, maybe I don't know if I like Robin Williams or him more in the movie, but he's definitely the focal point of the movie. It is, you know, about him and his story. And I mean, it was just that movie changed our enjoyment rating completely. Like we thought about it, it's a movie that changed the way we thought about things, and you know, I feel it wasn't necessarily his performance that did that, you know, all of it, but it was definitely like a factor that was like damn, that was damn good. Like he really seemed like, I don't know. That was just whether it was.
He did put on a hell of a performance, and like I think to that scene where he runs back to the room and Ethan Hawke's sitting there and he's like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be an actor, and he like runs around the room
throwing the papers and stuff.
Like, yes, dude, it's so fucking nice, and like sitting on top of the roof, like and when they throw the shit off the building, like. That's that shit right
Whenever
there.
He's in a cave and he like they're performing, you know, like to everyone. Oh yeah. Like that's the thing about these awards is that none of these are bad. Like they have won their decade.
Oh yeah, like that's the thing. When the easy L is Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper in Jaws, you know you did fucking good.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, you know, like because he was one of the funniest performers across our 52-year journey through film in Hooper. But I mean, I think we got to give our love to Joaquin Phoenix and Jonah Hill as well, because Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus was a top tier, like not antagonist, villain.
You
know, to compare it to Stephanie Hsu's antagonist versus villain.
That one's easy there.
Yeah, he was a fucking villain. And Jonah Hill, I said Hooper was one of the funniest. Donnie Azoff might just be the funniest on the actor side of our 52.
And as far as Jonah Hill goes, like there's no other Jonah Hill
performance.
Yeah, that's top one right there. But overall, Goddamn, that Shawshank movie, man. That Shawshank movie is just something
so
different.
Was Red.
Red was here.
Heading down to Zihuatanejo. This is a feeling that only a free man can feel.
A Morgan Freeman.
Of not knowing what comes the next day. It is a feeling only a free man can feel.
Monologue there. There's another monologue.
Yeah, no, Morgan Freeman. Like, we're gonna have a good. That's a good category coming up later. But yeah, Morgan Freeman in the Shawshank Redemption. It just it doesn't get much better than that, man. Like our supporting nods were easy. Those were easy winners in Stephanie Hsu and Morgan Freeman. We finally got a 90s winner here for Morgan Freeman. But now we're into what are truly the hardest categories of the list. We've got Best Actress and Best Actor coming up. So let's start with Actress. What do you say? Ladies first, after all.
Fuck.
No, this is a nightmare. 70s, we've got Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa. In the 80s, we've got Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley in Aliens. In the 90s, Lorraine Bracco as Karen Hill in Goodfellas. In the aughts, we got Uma Thurman as Beatrix Kiddo in Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. And if we're going to get specific with it, I'd go Volume 2. In the 10s, we got Emma Stone as Mia in La La Land. And in the 20s, we got Michelle Yeoh as Evelyn Wong in Everything Everywhere All at Once. So let me read that list to you again of the 6 of the greatest actresses of all time. Carrie Fisher, Sigourney Weaver, Lorraine Bracco, Uma Thurman, Emma Stone, and Michelle Yeoh.
I think I've narrowed it down to 3, but then the more I think of it, I'm like, hey,
no, that's what's crazy is I see the 3 you've selected, and like, frankly, you could also just be meaning the ones who aren't highlighted.
Okay. One of the most memorable, I feel, like it made me feel the most was Sigourney Weaver and Michelle Yeoh. I feel are like the 2 that were like, whoa, if you were not in this movie, the movie would not be a movie. But then you could say,
I think the only one you couldn't, I think there are 2 you could say that that's not the case for. You know, because I think Emma Stone, if Emma Stone's not in La La Land, it's fucked. Like, it's absolutely screwed. Lorraine Bracco in Goodfellas and Carrie Fisher in Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, Leia Organa is my single favorite fictional character of all time. There's just a whole lot of movie without her there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's still so much that goes on. And don't get me wrong, she does, like, the character itself does play a pivotal point. She is the pivoting point on which the whole plot starts to turn with Luke going on his adventure via the call to action by Leia. And the whole breaking her out of the Death Star sequence. And frankly, it is the most iconic performance here.
Oh yeah. Like you say Princess Leia, there's no
I didn't
one
have
else.
to specify the movie.
Yeah.
You know, like I did I read Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa and didn't elaborate.
No,
you know who Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa is.
I guess the difference between these 2 and the others is that the others are like the lead actresses, and what I mean by that is like the movie is like very much about them. And Lorraine Bracco and Carrie Fisher, even though they are the lead actresses for the movie isn't necessarily focused on them and only them. So it is, you know, like I don't know between these 4, like.
Yeah, because I mean, specifically, like, it's interesting that we have a few that you can just, like, compare directly to each other. Like, I'd say Carrie Fisher and Lorraine Bracco are an important comparison because they are sort of supporting characters, but they are the lead actresses. Sigourney Weaver and Uma Thurman are these action-centered, badass heroes who are just so fucking cool. Like the fact that we have we have Leia Organa, Ellen Ripley, and Beatrix Kiddo going against each other. It's just not fair. You know, like, how am I supposed to decide?
Like, Emma Stone had to act, sing, and dance. You know, like, it's all these other people are pretty much only up here for their acting performance.
Let's do this. We did this for each decade.
Ooh.
The moment, like the Oscar moment. They say, and this person nominated for this movie, and then they play the clip.
What
Thurman? Clip is getting played?
Ooh, I guess I was trying to think of, I don't know, maybe that isn't easy because there's a lot to choose from for Uma Thurman. 2 movies to choose from for her. Because I was gonna say the end scene between her and Bill. But honestly, it's more Bill that talks there, and she just does the 5-finger, death combo to him.
The one for me for Uma is the first time she sees BB, her daughter.
Ooh.
Alive.
Okay, duh.
Yeah, that's the one where she, like, there's just, like, another one where not a lot of words are spoken, but it's one where the way she acts it is just like, you feel every second of that. You know what I'm saying? And Volume 2 is she had a lot more room to go in Volume 2. You know, like, Volume 1 was much more action-centered, and Volume 2 was much more character-driven.
Mm-hmm.
And Uma Thurman carries both movies, but Volume 2, she's nuts in.
Sigourney Weaver. Oh, man. She's just so cool throughout the whole movie. What's her moment, though? It has to be with the little girl. I forgot her name.
It's Newt.
Newt. Yeah, it has to be something with her. Like,
I think, for me, it might just be when she finds Newt.
And they're in that little crawl space,
Yeah,
and
things change from that point.
Yeah.
Again, a mother figure meeting the daughter figure.
Mm-hmm.
And everything kind of turning on its axis from that point.
Okay. Emma Stone.
The Audition.
Yeah.
That's just...
there's no other moment really there that can beat that one.
And she's got a pretty nuanced performance and stuff, you know. Like, I think she's pretty funny in that movie. Like, whenever Ryan Gosling's playing at the party, and she's like, "Play Iran." And then she does, like, the mocking dance to him in the crowd while he performs it. Like, she's like, "Yeah, fuck you, dude." Like, that shit's funny. But, yeah, that whole scene, the whole realization when she's walking through Seb's at the end, like, the way she plays you through that's really impeccable. She does that's what sucks, is, like, she was my first out when I first looked at this. And her performance is nuts. Like, it's a real, like, it, for me, that is Emma Stone's career performance.
Oh, yeah. That's without a doubt. It's just she's going up against some insane women.
Heavy hitters.
Yeah, like,
just heavy hitters.
My absolute gut. I was between 2. My gut. And it was Sigourney Weaver and Michelle Yeoh was my...
I can get behind that.
If I have to get rid of someone out of these 3, which we kind of narrowed down to between Sigourney, Uma Thurman, and Michelle Yeoh, I think Uma Thurman's the next out, which is insane, but, like, Sigourney Weaver, oh man, but I don't know, Uma Thurman was, like, a literal badass, she's the whole fight, like, man, they're all cool for their own reasons.
Do you want me to... it didn't have to be like this. But, and I need to emphasize for everyone, recency bias is not at play here when I talk about how much I like Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a movie that I love the direction, I love the writing. I just lauded Stephanie Hsu as potentially one of my favorite performances of all time. Do you know how nuts it is that Stephanie Hsu doesn't dominate the movie? She's not easily the best performance in the movie. I don't even know that she is the best performance in the movie. Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once is fucking crazy. There's just such the way we start that movie. It actually is a little bit. Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor in Terminator, where she starts on this, like, you're not a badass. Mm-hmm. In fact, you're not even close. You have the potential to become one, but you're not right now. And the moments everything change, and that's what I like about Michelle Yeoh, is we get to see all the facets of this character.
That's true.
By the end of the movie, she might as well be Beatrix Kiddo and Ellen Ripley. At the beginning, though, she is more like Mia. She's more normal lady who is, like, whenever they're walking around the laundromat, the way she's playing stressed out at the table, the way, like. But let me ask you, what is Michelle Yeoh's moment?
I think it's the hardest one out of all of them to pinpoint a single moment. Because, like, the last argument between her and Joy, like, the final, or maybe it's, like, her whole realization. Like, but it's kind of unfair because that plays out over the span of, like, 20 minutes, like, even 50 minutes, maybe, if you go back, like, far enough.
We just see her in so many different ways, we see her be clueless and kind of, like, annoyed and naive, and we also see her be certain and fucking pissed and sad, and, like, she just has to reach different depths that I don't think the other actresses we had here had to.
Maybe that's why she just wins. Her performance is at the same level as all of these people, but there is no one moment that is, like, better than the rest, because it is just throughout the whole movie that she's that good. Like, she had to play so many different characters, and she killed all of them. Like,
yeah, man, I think it's got, like, this was the thing I was worried about falling into with Star Wars. I didn't realize Everything Everywhere All at Once might dominate it that way. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Michelle Yeoh is Best Actress. I think that's what I gotta go with.
I think
that's what I gotta go with.
Who's second place for you?
I mean, for me personally, Carrie Fisher. I think the iconicism of that performance and the way it just changed everything can't be understated. I don't like. She specifically is one that the iconicism carries her to this point. She didn't have to reach the depths Michelle Yeoh has to in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'd say her closest comparison in terms of actual performance is Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley, because they both kind of play a similar role. There's not a lot of downtime. They don't get a lot of chances on screen to not be panicked, worried, in a hurry, fighting for their life. Like that's kind of what they do the whole movie, and they're both fantastic at it. But we don't get to see a ton of vulnerability in Leia. We don't get to, like, because she doesn't have the opportunity to show it. I think it's just that simple. What's crazy is that the other four are the ones that are more like, or the other three, Lorraine Bracco, Uma Thurman, and Emma Stone, provide us with a little more range than those two had to. Like Lorraine Bracco, we see her, like, I don't think anyone sobs quite as well as Lorraine Bracco on screen. Like when they're squatted in the corner, like, and he's like, "What did you do?" And she's like, "I didn't know." Like that moment in that movie is fucking incredible. The way she plays pissed when she's on top of him with the fucking gun,
dude. Ooh.
The way she plays absolutely horny whenever he goes across the street and beats that dude with the butt of his gun. Like,
I put Lorraine I put her out way too quick. Like, whenever I was reading through, I put her out like, nah, I should not have dismissed her.
I'd say she has far and away the most underrated performance of our nominees here. because she is, that's the thing about her, is that we talked about how she's not the focal point of the story, but in a movie with Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, none of them are nominated. Not for that movie.
Dang. What decade was that one? 90s?
90s. They didn't win.
Let's see. Do they?
They got nominated. Joe Pesci and De Niro did, but Ray Liotta didn't.
Okay. Yeah, wow. That's... Dang. A smaller part of the movie, but more impactful.
Well, because, like, for me, again, the pivot point for everything that I'm actually interested in that movie with Hank Hill. Like,
man, it's always the mob wife, you know? Like, it's such an interesting dynamic that a mob wife has to deal with. Like, someone who is probably not loyal to them, and them only, who's going off and, you know, doing what they, like, with other women. And then, like, I'm thinking of, I don't know, but, what's her name? In The Sopranos, God.
Carmela.
Yeah, but they're real, the actress. I don't
Edie Falco.
Like her too, like, I don't know. It's a very interesting character to have to play. But man, I don't think anyone can beat out Michelle Yeoh here, though. Like,
I don't think so either. I think she just has to reach to the biggest, broadest extremes across the board, all in a matter of 2 hours and 20 minutes. And she's pretty much on screen all the time. You know, like, she has very little time where she's not on screen. But yeah, Michelle Yeoh, I think that is the best actress of our 52-year journey through film. I think it is Michelle Yeoh.
Damn.
But fuck yeah, I love that. Love that for her. Another win for the 20s, with them getting Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. With that, on to Best Actor, where we have a hell of a slate. We got for the 70s Marlon Brando as Don Vito Corleone.
Goat.
In the 80s, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones.
Goat.
In the 90s, we have Denzel Washington as Malcolm X. In the aughts, we have Denzel Washington as Frank Lucas in American Gangster.
Even more goated. 2 decades.
In 2 decades. Damn, man, that's going to be... In the 10s, we got Daveed Diggs as Colin in Blind Spotting. And in the 20s, we have Andrew Garfield as Jonathan Larson in Tick, Tick, Boom.
This is some big, big name. Like, you have The Godfather, Indiana Jones. You know, like, okay, maybe Indy is like, did he really have to reach as much? You know, he
plays an epic action hero.
Yeah.
But that's what's crazy about this is Harrison Ford is one of the goats. But for me, he is first out here.
Yeah.
I think he does fantastic as Indy. It's one of the most iconic characters of all time, but he's in kind of the same boat with Leia Organa in the last category, where iconicism can only carry you so far. You did have to reach different levels in your performance, you know, and you know, I think that we have a few banger performances that do reach just very, very broad spectrum of emotion. I think Denzel Washington as Malcolm X is what's really cool is we've got 3 nominees here based off real people.
Ooh.
Denzel playing 2 of them.
Wow. Andrew Garfield. Yeah, okay. I didn't think about that.
Nor I, but like looking at it like that, it's like, wow. So like I can only carry that argument so far. Is like because half the nominees are based off of like, well, they had to bring a real person to life, you know, like I can compare 3 people in that regard. here's the thing, though, is that when you've got a category with Denzel Washington and Marlon Brando, how is the winner not Denzel Washington or Marlon Brando?
I think if you have to pick one Denzel out of here, either Frank Lucas or Malcolm X, like, what character are you going with? Is it just Malcolm X? Or like
it might be. That's the thing, is that, like, I'm thinking it's kind of nuts because I'm thinking back to all my favorite Denzel moments.
Frank Lucas is like the
Frank
character.
Lucas is cold.
I think the movie of Malcolm X is like better, and Denzel makes that movie. But the character and the performance of Frank Lucas in American Gangster, like, I don't think we rated it too high. Well, yeah, actually, no, we did. 4.85 critically, so wasn't anything to scoff at.
No, definitely not.
For some reason, I thought it was much lower than that. I don't know why.
I think it came like right after The Departed, which was a surprisingly low, I think, compared to what we thought it would be. But for me, it's interesting because I think he brought Malcolm X to life in a way that's just impeccable. You know, I think he did incredible. But when I think about American Gangster, I do think he had to reach a broader spectrum of emotion. You know, I think he did have to bring the performance to life in a different way. Like the way that movie took advantage of Denzel being scary as fuck without ever raising his voice. Without ever showing any bit of emotion, without like whenever he I mean, obviously the scene that comes to mind is him sitting in the diner with his family and then being like just being like casually talking to them about the business and being like, hold on, I gotta go see something real quick. And he's like, run that money, Mr. Idris Elba. And he's like, what are you gonna do, shoot me in front of all these people? And he's like, yes, that is exactly what I'll do. He shoots him in the head. He goes ahead and collects the money he was owed and makes his way back into that diner where he sits down and continues to just spit game. And then later on in that movie, when the wine spilt on the carpet, and he's like,
blot that shit.
Don't rub that shit. You got to blot that. That's alpaca.
That's $10,000 alpaca. Or was it 10 or like 12,000?
I can't remember how much money it was. It might have been
15 or 50. Oh yeah,
that's $50,000 alpaca. You blot that shit. No, like that's one of my favorite line deliveries in the history of movies, you know. And I want to, before we dig deeper into Denzel versus Marlon Brando, I do want to put some respect on Daveed Diggs and Andrew Garfield, because I think these two are going to have a couple wins in the later section of the award show, as far as maybe another monologue one with Daveed Diggs, song performance, maybe either of them. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but both of them have just nuts ability to reach a depth of emotion you don't expect. Like, these two are up here with Denzel, Harrison Ford, and Marlon Brando. I think Andrew Garfield more obviously kind of fits into that, but the fact that Daveed Diggs is here is fucking awesome. You know, like, he was in a decade with Matthew McConaughey and
Leonardo DiCaprio, Jamie Foxx, Steve Carell, like
Daniel Kaluuya. Like,
shit.
he was in a category with some legendary actors, and he came out on top, you know. So now he's getting compared to Denzel, Harrison Ford, Marlon Brando, and Andrew Garfield here. And what's crazy is, like, he finished for me above Harrison Ford.
Oh yeah, I'd say so.
I'd say so as well. And I think Denzel Washington brings Malcolm X to life in a way that's really, really impeccable, but I don't know that he has to reach the depth of emotion that Colin has to in Blind Spotting. I think that Daveed Diggs does provide one of the more nuanced performances of this entire project. And I think it's really well matched by Andrew Garfield as Jonathan Larson. I think that there's a lot of great moments by Andrew Garfield in that movie, dude.
Ooh, I'm trying to pick one. And then I'm like, well, damn, whenever he was
kind
like,
of
I don't have my time, do I go see my friend who's in the hospital, or do I do I go to my girlfriend, that moment you have the I don't know, just the grin, the happy birthday, like at the end. It's not like anything special or act. It's just the moment. I don't know. Like, it was just
why. Whenever he sits down in the rain and performs that song, and he's got the tears flowing down his face, man, like he kills that shit. Like, and what another like little moment that just he played the character so well is whenever he shows up to his workshop and nobody's there, and Vanessa Hudgens walks in and he's like, "Nobody's here. What am I going to do? Well, nobody's here." She's like, "It's not even 9 a.m. yet. It doesn't start till 10." And the way he just.
Yeah, just the relief.
That's good. He just the way that Denzel Washington kind of became Malcolm X, Andrew Garfield kind of became Jonathan Larson. You know, like it was like that's what makes Denzel Washington as Frank Lucas kind of stand out, because that's a real person that he went ahead and dramatized the fuck out of. You know, like, I don't know that Frank Lucas was exactly like Denzel Washington in this role. The other two felt like they were very honorably representing the person that they were playing. I feel like Denzel made Frank Lucas an absolute pimp for no reason.
I didn't even think about it, but like we have The Godfather going against the guy who stood up to all the other Godfathers and just out mobbed them.
It's something about the organized crime leaders, man. They have an opportunity to.
What was going to start this what started the project in the first place? Was organized. It was the mob movies. Like those weren't those the first movies that you put in place. Yeah, like there's something special about that story. You know, it's so wrong that you don't want to root for him, but while you're watching, it's like I know it's in the mob, but I have this unquestionable loyalty to, even though I know you're wrong. Like it's very strange, but it just works. But man, I mean, this is one of like Marlon Brando as the Godfather is one of just the greatest acting performances of all time across all movies.
I mean, just that opening scene, man. Just getting us so quickly acquainted with what the tone of the movie is and what the lifestyle we're digging into is going to be. Like this mythic idea of the mob and like this grandiose respectability that he's portraying is just like, it's incredible, you know? Another one of my favorite scenes, look how they massacred my boy. Oh. Like, that's a meme now, but in the movie, in the context of the movie, it's a very moving scene, you know? Like, later on in the movie, whenever he's sitting down with Michael and he's talking about what's to come, like, whoever agrees to sit down, he's the one who's doing the thing. You gotta be on the lookout. He's like, I already know how this shit goes.
What a voice to have to put on, too. You know, like the way he held his face, you know, like to know that he was in Apocalypse Now. I did not know that was Marlon Brando, because I've only known Marlon Brando as the Godfather. And then when I saw him as just kind of a normal looking person, like, I guess, maybe not really normal looking.
Yeah, person. He looked like a cult leader a little bit, but
I had no idea that it was him. Like, I had zero until like the pod where I think you mentioned his name, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? That was Marlon Brando? But
send Pataglia. Give him an offer he can't refuse.
Like, Denzel is my favorite actor of all time, so it's hard for me to say that he doesn't win. So I don't know. Like, I feel like Marlon Brando wins, but that's only because I feel like I am biased towards Denzel so much.
Here's my thing, is that I think if we were to base it off the logic of, actually, no matter what way I spin it in my head, Marlon Brando wins.
Okay.
Denzel, legend, he's going against Don Vito Corleone, the Godfather. That is one of the most classic movie characters and performances of all time. This is the one that combines the iconicism of Harrison Ford with the performance of a crime boss like Frank Lucas. You know, like it's impeccable just how classic this shit is.
Yeah, I'd say you look up a list of the greatest acting performances of all time. On most of them, if not all, you're going to find Marlon Brando as the Godfather. I think, he just wins here. I think he just wins.
I think drugs are going to kill this business.
Dude was smart. Knew what he was talking about. He's been in the business for a
Took
while.
Frank Lucas down.
Damn. Yeah.
Ooh-wee.
Right, even all the way back then. But yeah.
Well, another dub for the 70s there with Marlon Brando. But now we got 1, 2, 3 winners for the 70s, I believe.
2 for the 22 or like the 20s.
2 for the 20s.
Both in the same movie, which is nuts.
1 for the aughts, 1 for the 90s.
2 for the 90s, right? Morgan Freeman and is Gladiator the 90s?
Gladiator's aughts.
Oh, never mind. Oh, it's the first of the aughts. That's right. It is 2000.
Yeah, it's 2000.
Okay, so there we go.
But yeah, so only era. What's crazy is we got the 70s, we got the 90s, we got the aughts, we got the 20s. So we've left out so far the 10s and the 80s. And what's nuts is that the 80s is usually the one where people go, we got to go watch an 80s movie. I mean, like, there was a whole song by John Bellion. Remember that song, 80s Films? Just like the 80s films, we'll hook up in the backseat and let my best friend drive.
I have not heard that.
Strongly recommend.
It is our lowest rated decade, though. It did have Spaceballs and Scarface and Blade Runner.
Yeah,
so,
we had some ones that we just didn't take a liking to in the 80s.
I'd say if you take those out, it actually is pretty high rated amongst
But even with like the latter half of the 10s, like down in the 10s, the fact that they don't have any dubs yet, and we got the 16 and on.
Yeah, that was a strong. The latter half of the 10s was strong.
And 2014 Interstellar, like there's like 6 movies above a 4.8 in that decade.
Damn. Well, sometimes it's just how it works out. I mean, this is comparing everything, like every performance, every movie. Yeah. So I mean,
these things happen.
I guess like out of the 90s itself, like those nominations, like that was it was a difficult. Well, I guess
it's actually interesting we say all this because the next category in Best Director, I'm split between 2 off the top of my head, and I think it's the 80s and the 10s. So we've got in the 70s for Best Director, Francis Ford Coppola on The Godfather. In the 80s, Stanley Kubrick for The Shining. In the 90s, Martin Scorsese for Goodfellas. In the aughts, Quentin Tarantino for Kill Bill Volume 1, I think is what I'd choose there if you're in agreement. Mm-hmm. In the 10s, Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. And in the 20s, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland.
And you're between the 10s and the
80s.
Okay.
I think this does kind of come between, for me, Stanley Kubrick and Bong Joon-ho.
Okay, because I was very hesitant to put like Stanley Kubrick up there.
No kidding.
I love that movie, so I was like, I'm not gonna throw him out there right away, just because like I really love that movie. I'm gonna take myself out of it, but I'm very happy to hear that.
That's the thing about The Shining, is that it's not a movie I have a lot of interest in rewatching. I think the performances are great. It really is the direction of that movie that makes that movie appealing. Stanley Kubrick went fucking nuts for The Shining.
The build-up of that movie, what you don't know what's going to go wrong, but you know something's about to happen. Like it's something's about to snap, and you don't know what. And it's just that is the part of horror or thriller movies that I can't get enough of. It's not the jump scares. It's not how scared I was during the movie. It's how it builds on top of itself and just keeps going and going and going. And my favorite horror thriller directors, Kubrick and Jordan Peele. Like, Jordan Peele does an excellent job of building over the entire span of the movie and having it all connect in a way that's, you don't think of at first, and it blows your mind. At the same time, it's getting your heart to go a million miles an hour.
Hey, man, you're describing all that, and it ain't necessarily horror. But the other movie on this list that kind of makes you feel that is Parasite. Like, it's not necessarily horror. There are some scary. There's a couple scary moments, but not like horror moments. It's just kind of like,
suspense.
Hair standing up on me a little bit. Yeah, like
the build of suspense. I feel is not every movie is supposed to do that necessarily. It's every movie's different, but I think it is interesting that these two are very similar in that way.
We're between those two. Let's throw some respect on the others while we're here. In fact, I'm gonna do kind of the compare and contrast thing the way that we've been doing. I think what's interesting about this is we can actually compare the 70s and the 20s pretty well with Francis Ford Coppola and Chloe Zhao. I think that Francis is capturing a segment of American life that we don't know a lot about.
Wow.
And you know what Chloe Zhao did? In a very different way, obviously, captured a sect of American life we do not know a lot about. Obviously, The Godfather, we've come to know a little bit more about the organized crime sort of thing because of these movies, but we only know the movie version of it. And the reason we know anything about the movie version of it is The Godfather. It's an incredible movie, and I think it's got this really grand scope, and it tries to paint a really honest portrayal of this lifestyle, which I think it does a very good job of. And I think Chloe Zhao does the same thing for Nomadland. And I think to a lot of the atmospheric shots, just the
sunsets, just seeing like people sit there. They're just like, there's some scenes where they're just sitting on lawn chairs, just not saying a word, just sitting there and like just capturing that, or her running near the ocean, just running through and just being happy to be there.
Fucking brilliant, dude. And then, that's why I love both those movies. I think they kind of are trying to do the same thing with the storytelling of it all. Obviously, very different movies, but I feel like they have a similar goal in mind. Maybe Godfather has a little bit more of a narrative goal than Nomadland did, but a little bit more of a traditional plot.
I feel like I want to throw out. I don't usually fuck with Quentin Tarantino too much. For like Pulp Fiction, we didn't really. I don't know if we just didn't get it. I don't know. It just was not really great there. But he was in his bag whenever he made Kill Bill.
I actually saw I was recently reading Movies and Other Things by Shea Serrano, who I absolutely love. I think he's got some just fantastic takes. He talked about Pulp Fiction very briefly in this book, where he was like, I'm either going to get one of two reactions from you. Either, yes, finally someone agrees with me, or B, you're a goddamn idiot, you don't get it. And he says, I'm not a huge fan of Pulp Fiction. I think there are great moments. I think there are certain scenes that are really fun to watch. He said the way he views that movie is like a series of highlights. Like a highlight montage where you're just watching a bunch of clips segmented right one after the other, and I couldn't agree more. That's like it makes for some pretty great entertainment. Pretty dull movie. Meanwhile, Kill Bill Volume 1 fucking kills, dude. I've been thinking about this movie a lot lately, and the time of recording is important in that our Kill Bill Volume 2 episode came out last Friday. So I have been thinking about it a little bit more lately, and like there was a whole chapter in that same book I was talking about that was like, who gets it worse? Who gets it the worst in Kill Bill? And so I've just been reflecting on these movies a lot, and dude, I fucking love them.
They were fun,
they're
and
fun
good.
as fuck. And that's what's great about Kill Bill and Goodfellas getting compared here, is they're just dripping with style. You know, more so Kill Bill than Goodfellas, I'd say, just because that's how over the top Tarantino is
the blood,
in Kill Bill Volume 1. Yeah,
black and white for some shots. The
dramatic shots that are just like them facing off with each other, and the music swells in a really corny way. The
anime, is that in the first one?
Yep.
Yeah, like that's insane. You know, I had no idea that was in the movie like at all before, and then as it comes on, I'm like, what's happening? And then I'm like, I'm actually okay with this right now. Like, it's just that kind of movie. Like, it was just fun, just a fun experience to have. But as compared to The Shining or Parasite, it's like it is one of those two. And I mean, my pick is The Shining. If I have a pick, but it is just one of my favorite movies of all time. It's definitely my favorite thriller / horror / whatever you want to call that. So I mean, that would be my pick. But if Parasite does edge it out, and you see it edging it out, then I am okay with that. But
now here's the thing: is that I find myself thinking of them on extremely equal footing. I do find that this is more of an enjoyment based thing. I do find myself willing to watch Parasite more than I find myself willing to watch The Shining. The visual storytelling that Parasite utilizes is nuts.
The half and half, the downhill, the uphill. Like, I kind of forgot about all that, and that is, like, part of the direction. And yes, like, The Shining, they do a great job of building everything, but, like, Parasite it's probably going to... The Shining is not really a movie where you can be like, oh, I didn't notice that the first time, or, like, the second or third. But, like, in Parasite, you'll be like, oh, my God, like, the imagery, and the shots were beautiful too in that movie. Like, they were set up for a very specific reason.
But I'm thinking back to The Shining, man, and I'm like, there is something to the fact that is what that movie is for to me. You know, like, Parasite has a lot else going for it, I think. Don't get me wrong. The direction is a whole other level. But The Shining, I think if this has a much more dull director, we definitely don't get the performances we got out of Jack Nicholson and oh shit, what was her name?
Oh my gosh, I can't even think of the character.
Shelley Duvall. Shelley Duvall is
go.
Wendy.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, we definitely wouldn't have got the performances that we got out of them because odds are the director would have treated them a lot better.
Sad to say, but...
Yeah, sad to say that the reason the movie's good is because he's such a shit dude. I think I'm with your gut. I think I'm with it. I think it probably is The Shining. There's just an appeal to it that I think it does have a lot of the visual storytelling stuff that Parasite's got going on. I think The Shining does it well, and I kind of disagree with the idea that it's something you can watch and not. Like, I think on the second watch of The Shining, I'm going a little bit more like,
actually,
oh,
fair.
shit.
It is like you didn't after you realize where it's going to go. That's okay. That's actually fair. I guess I was thinking of more of like little small details that are like the imagery and more stuff like that. But there are definitely parts in The Shining where you're like, oh, like every single person before him has gone crazy. You know, like it's something you don't pick up at first, where it's like every person that had the job before him. Or the guy that before, you know.
Dude, it's so cool to think about the way they kind of utilize the same method in completely different ways to build tension. Like, with The Shining, riding behind little red rum kid on his little bike. And we're directly behind him around every corner, just waiting for what the fuck's around the corner, man. Every time the doorway in Parasite is just foreboding in the background of the room. That's more on second watch that you feel that suspense, that you start going like, oh, fuck, there's something ominous going on there. But you notice it. Like, you feel the tension build just from it being there.
And, like, most of the bike riding, like, his little bike riding, like, nothing happens at all. You're thinking, like, is like what you're thinking the whole time, like, okay, something's going to happen at the end of this, but then it's like, nope, move on to the next. Like,
we'll come back to it. The meticulousness of rolling the tennis ball perfectly, and
took him how many times to get that right? It was some ungodly number.
Amount.
Yeah,
the blood pouring out of. I think it's got to be The Shining, man.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be The Shining. I think it's a whole other level of nitpicky for a director. Like, Bong Joon-ho was very particular about what he wanted to get done and what he needed to get done, but not on the level Stanley Kubrick was,
50 takes to get that right. For whatever reason.
Just rolling the ball.
Probably just to annoy the fuck out of the actors and the camera crew. Like, just to get under everyone's skin.
I think it was to be perfectly centered.
And it was, yeah. It was probably more of just, let's get it in the middle. But
OCD as fuck of Stanley Kubrick. But, yeah, I think I'm with that. And thus, we have our first 80s win.
There we go. Elliot.
And with that, let's hit the Best Writer category. In the 70s, we've got George Lucas for Star Wars. He also wrote American Graffiti in the decade. But we're going to credit him for Star Wars here. Tom Schulman for Dead Poets Society in the 80s. John Singleton for Boys in the Hood in the 90s. Simon Beaufoy for Slumdog Millionaire in the aughts. Bong Joon-ho and Han Jin-won for Parasite in the 10s. And Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once in the 20s. This is hard. It's pretty hard.
Now, whenever we're talking Star Wars, is it really just a hero story? Or, like, was Star Wars really the thing that, like, solidified a hero story? Was it, like, the bait? I feel like when you boil down, like, Star Wars, no, fuck, I can't. Like, I'm trying to discredit that it's not actually good writing, but like a lot of the stuff just kind of fell into his lap, and it was like,
oh no, yeah, I think here's the thing is that I don't think Star Wars is like it's not going to win this category, okay. Not for me. I think it is masterfully written in that it did exactly what it aimed to do. It aimed to create a summer blockbuster that drew in kids. And it did that perfectly. I think it did exactly what it aimed to do. I'm between a few. I'm between Tom Schulman for Dead Poets Society, John Singleton for Boys in the Hood, Simon Beaufoy for Slumdog Millionaire, Bong Joon-ho and Han Jin-won for Parasite, and Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm between every other option. And if I'm getting real, I think I knock Slumdog Millionaire out. It was a great movie. It sucks that amidst all of these, it's a pretty forgettable one.
Yeah.
I remember loving it, and I remember thinking it had a fantastic story.
I think that's why it actually won the writing for the decade. Is that like the end of the movie? It was written, and like it was just like a beautiful like, oh come on, oh we didn't even. It was the only nomination.
Yeah, the aughts were a terribly written movie decade. Like it was bad that decade.
It was
that
just
was
written that it was going to be the best written movie. It's all written there. But no, I agree. Out of these movies, though, yeah, it's kind of out.
After that, though, these last four, I have no goddamn clue.
These two are like very for a reason, like to show like differences in class and like struggles with like real world sort of. Oh well, I mean, I don't want to say everything all at once.
Parasite,
isn't. Yeah. Oh, true. I forgot people can't see what I'm selecting here. Yeah. But like everything, everywhere, all at once is a very real problem between families. But like Parasite and Boys in the Hood felt more.
It's not a multiversal conflict.
It was in the real world.
Multiversal stake. And I think Dead Poets Society does too, in a very different way. And not obviously not in the same way Parasite and Boys in the Hood does it, where it's a different community that's it is a little bit more underprivileged, as opposed to these rich white boys who are sent to board school. But it does paint a really awesome struggle within Neil during this time, where it's about the expectations of what one might expect of someone with that kind of life, someone who has seemingly had it all and is kind of seems like they're set. I think it painted a really awesome portrait there. I think it is. I was going to say I think it's the most like inspirational and leaves me the most like, wow, my outlook has changed, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's Everything Everywhere All at Once if we're breaking it down to these options. It sucks, but I do think Dead Poets Society is my next out.
Yeah. I was there too. And like, if we're going on like what's the better story of like the class, like of the real world, like between Boys in the Hood and Parasite, like I think Boys in the Hood is more well written than the like that's what that movie is that story. It is that story that happened to those people, and like it wasn't was it based off a true story?
Not based on a true story.
Yeah, no. Like it might as well have been.
Might as well have been. Like that's
But the thing with Parasite is like as Boys in the Hood is better than Parasite as like portraying the real world thing. I think Parasite is like maybe a more well written movie overall. Like for the suspense building, for the mind fuck sort of things. Like, oh, there's been a guy living down here for however long, and then now the dad is doing the same thing, and like it's all.
That's what's interesting about comparing those two movies. Boys in the Hood is a very plain, realistic. And not plain in a bad way, like straightforward is more what I mean to say. Like it is, this is what happens. Parasite, it does take real world problems, but folds them into a little bit more of an unlikely story.
One of my, I think one of the most underrated characters in the whole project is Lawrence Fishburne as Furious Styles. He was one of my one of my favorites. Just instantly
love
too.
Lawrence Fishburne as Furious Styles, man.
Like I don't know why. Like, but I don't know why. I just instantly loved his performance there. Maybe it was like I knew he was Morpheus, so I'm like, oh, sick. Let me see Morpheus in some other movie here, And then, but then I was like, oh no, this is not Morpheus. This is not like this is he's acting his ass off here. Like I don't know. But
this is hard, G. This is hard.
It's between these three movies, I feel.
And it was kind of man, but I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is just so different. Like it is so far outside the box while still telling you a story that is meaningful. Like that's what's crazy about the movie is that they pulled it off, and that it is as good as it is.
Each character's story is like perfectly like every character has an impactful moment or arc that like every single character was written beautifully.
All the way down to Deirdre.
Yeah, I thought you first watch. I'm like, oh, she just is like a little cameo. She's like the first, the IRS agent. Like it's Jamie Lee Curtis. Cool. Like I didn't think she was gonna be any more in the movie, like whatsoever. And then like it turns out that she was just I was like kind of hoping for her to show up again, like in like it's like we just work our way up with the fantasticalness of everything here, with Boys in the Hood being a very straightforward, grim, rough look of real life problems.
Parasite, elevating it a little bit in that it is a look at real life problems and a little bit more of an unlikely story, a little bit more like they infiltrated this rich family's house. Oh, there's someone living in the basement. This is not likely, and then we elevate that even more with a real family problem, not a societal problem, a real family problem. I suppose you could look at it as a more general grade and scope critique of general empathy and everything everywhere all at once, but it takes some real shit and applies it to the most fantastical nature you could possibly take it in a multiversal story where we've got butt plugs and dildos around every corner. And I say that, and it doesn't it doesn't make it any less legitimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's,
it is just still a fair choice.
Yeah, just because Everything Everywhere All at Once was so fantastical and written well doesn't mean it was written better than Boys in the Hood. Like, just because it's more fantastic doesn't necessarily make it better. It's just but it's almost near impossible that they pulled off that movie in the first place the way they did. Like,
that's the thing that's nuts, is that the stakes are so high and so outrageous. There's so much comedy weaved in and out, and it still remains one of the most heartfelt experiences I've had watching a movie.
I think Boys in the Hood and Parasite are just very, very close seconds to Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
I have been trying to convince myself of how Parasite or Boys in the Hood could beat out Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I haven't been able to yet.
Yeah, it really just comes down to the fact that I can't fathom how they pulled it off. It could have been so easy to lose the emotional thread with all the outrageous jokes and multiversal stakes and confusing physics and of everything of the world. They just went ahead and told the story they wanted to tell and used the multiverse as a device to do that. It wasn't like the basis of the story, which is that's perfect. I struggle though because I don't like Boys in the Hood and Parasite are two of the greatest movies of all time.
They're written very well, very well. That's the we are comparing the best of the decades. So it's
shit.
It's insane that Star Wars is just no, sorry, you're not in this conversation here. Like Dead Poets, was a movie because of the writing and the emotional aspect that we changed our rating system for, and it's still still probably not. It's great, but not in the conversation that we're having here. If it's not Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think it's even harder. If you remove Everything Everywhere All at Once and you had to pick between Parasite and Boys in the Hood, that's even harder.
That's my thing, is that I can't decide between those two, and I also can't decide if they are better written than Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's my thing right now, is I'm
there's too many connections in Everything Everywhere All at Once. The circles, there's
that's more like visual storytelling. It's not necessarily writing,
okay.
I think the shit that's well written in Everything Everywhere All at Once truly is the family drama. That is the stuff and the weaving the outrageous comedy within it.
That would be more direction, I guess. All those little visual cues and stuff. But the characters and the family story, it's not written bad. It's not poor. It's okay. Maybe if I take myself out, take all the multiverse stuff out, take all the action out, just the but I cry so much more.
I cry so hard.
So much more in that movie. So I cry more than Boys in the Hood and Parasite combined.
That's kind of what we've been saying, though, is that, like, in spite of all that, it's still one of the most emotionally heartfelt things we've watched ever. And that's not just because of visual cues, you know? It's not just because of score. It's because they wrote the movie so goddamn well.
They focused on what needed to be focused on.
It's true.
And
I mean, but you can't say that's not the case for Parasite. You can't say that's not the case for Boys in the Hood. That's what's so fucking difficult about this. And what really, really hurts my soul is that I think my first out here of these three is Boys in the Hood. I absolutely love that movie, but I think what it does, I don't know. I don't even know that I believe that as I'm saying it.
I guess there are some that's the thing, is that, like, it's hard to compare because every character is so well written in Everything Everywhere All at Once, but, like, they completely made up that character. When, like, in Boys in the Hood, it was like, it's made up, yes, and sure, Ice Cube's here, but, like, it's still a very real portrayal of real people. And it's not like you can... It's completely different styles of writing.
Yeah.
And, I mean...
Yeah, I think I might go back on everything we've been saying completely and say it's between Parasite and Boys in the Hood.
Okay.
Don't like... That's the thing. I can't decide. I'm kind of just talking here. How do you feel about that? Like, when I said that, did your gut go, I agree?
I feel like the writing isn't the biggest part of Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is the biggest part of Boys in the Hood. And Parasite. Honestly, too. Like, it may be the direction is big, like, I don't know, is a little bit more substantial in Parasite, but, like, writing, the story,
just right,
just the story that was told over the span of the movie.
If it's that, I need you to remember the first time you watched Parasite. That shit's nuts. Like, I love Boys in the Hood for how real it gets. Parasite blew my fucking mind the first time I watched it.
Parasite is kind of the realness of Boys in the Hood plus the mindfuck and the crazy ride that you're on for the whole time. Now actually talking about Parasite, like, it is more well written than Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, it is between Boys in the Hood and Parasite now, writing wise.
Okay, I'm glad we got there, because I've been trying to. The thing that I just couldn't let go of with Everything Everywhere All at Once was the fact that they pulled it off. It's just kind of like, it's a movie that shouldn't work and absolutely does on every level.
It's more the performances and the visuals and the story's good. I'm not trying to say it's not, but, like, you are distracted by a lot of other things in that movie. In which Parasite, it is simply the story. In Boys in the Hood, that's all you're getting. Like, in Boys in the Hood, there's no crazy VFX. Parasite there is, but, like, it's not to be known that it is VFX.
Yeah, it's not to, like, be like, oh, we're in a different fucking universe. You know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
just how modern movies are just kind of made now.
Yeah.
But if I have to pick between Boys in the Hood and Parasite, I think I'm picking Parasite.
Okay, I think so too. I'm glad we reached a conclusion here. And I'm thinking there, let's go back through these. We had in set design, we got Star Wars winning. That's a 70s win. Costume design, we got Gladiator. That's an aughts win. In best soundtrack, we got Star Wars again, a 70s win. Best supporting actress, Stephanie Hsu for Joy. and Everything Everywhere All at Once, another a 20s win. And Best Supporting Actor, we got Morgan Freeman in The Shawshank Redemption, a 90s win. Best Actress, we got Michelle Yeoh as Evelyn in Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's another 20s win. Best Actor, Marlon Brando, a 70s win. Best Director, Stanley Kubrick, an 80s win. And Best Writer, Bong Joon-ho and Han Jin-won for Parasite. And that's our first 10s win. And they're in every single decade got a dub. Which is impeccable, and I will say the most winning decade, I believe, was the 70s.
It's the because the 22s got just 2, right? It was just the 2 actor and actresses.
Yeah.
The 70s got Star Wars, and Marlon Brando, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 90s almost got a second one with Boys in the Hood there at the end, but I'm thinking we save movie of the decade for after the fun stuff here in a little bit.
That's fair.
So
not just critically the movie of the decade.
It's also favorites. It's also favorites. It's all to be considered. So let's get into that shit. What do you say?
Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah, so this shit's going to be way too big. We're going to have to cut this up into 2 parts. So this is going to be part 1, the official part of the Ultimate Penny Bloom Film Awards. And you'll just have to catch part 2. Head over there right now. Do that shit. Not even really going to do a sign off. Fucking love you, dog. Go ahead and hit the more fun side of things now. Right now.